Hi, everybody. It's Sylvia and Peter. We're back. We're just having a laughing fit because of the technology we're playing with on Zoom. So that is all a sign of, I think, good mental health, that we can have a laugh at what we're doing and not be completely bogged down with wanting it to be perfect. So, as you know, we talk about mental health in general and in business in particular, and no matter what it is, people are involved. And people are motivated by certain things, and they are not motivated by other certain things, and it's all very individual. But there is a classification or a division that we can make, sort of roughly, that you can be motivated by what we call away from thinking or towards thinking. And those of you who know NLP will know where all this comes from. But it very often happens in business that we have some very down in the mouth people sitting there. They just want to get out of Dodge City. Maybe that's why we had the Great Resignation. People left in droves. They didn't like where they were. They wanted to get away. What we don't know is, what did they get? Where did they go? What did they go towards, if anything? Did they know what they wanted next? And I know from a lot of my clients that a big part of their poor mental health, their feeling low, their feeling uninspired, is they don't know where to go next. They just know that they don't like where they are. They want to get away from it, and they've got some reason to get away from certain things. We can clear that up. But then what do we do next? A client once famously said to me, "Peter, who am I without OCD?" So she wanted to get away from her OCD life. We've managed that. And then we had to figure out what she has in her toolbox, what she has in her life, where she wants to take herself next. We've also figured that out, but that was as hard work as it was to get her out of the old habits of the OCD. So what motivates people?
Goodness, we could write about this, couldn't we? External motivation, internal motivation, where does it come from? Picking up on your point, though, about the away from and towards language, I know in my early part of my career, moving around different banks, it was very much an away from, although I didn't know this terminology, this language then, I'd be unhappy with where I was working and, okay, I don't want to be here anymore, let's go somewhere else. But what I didn't do, in hindsight, was think about, where am I going? I'm unhappy about this current position. What is it that I want? Can I make these changes, or would these changes be possible in my existing? Or if I am going to move jobs, what am I looking for in my next job? Because otherwise it becomes away from. Later on in my career, when I'm more familiar and all the stuff that you and I do now, it's more a case then of, okay, I'm unhappy here. What do I want? And I give a very, very brief story there. I had a run-in with a boss many years ago. It was pretty serious. I remember going back to my desk and thinking a very short 4-letter sentence. What do I want? And the intonation on each one, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? And what do I want? And then it's a case of, because in my work, probably like you, Peter, I find a lot of people know what they don't want. But when you ask them what they do want, don't know. And I'll give another example there. You know, I went into, in another job I was in, I remember going into a top senior leader's office, having a bit of a rant. I don't want this and this and this and this and this and this. And he said to me, Sylvie, he said, I hear what you're saying. However, until you tell me what you want, I can't help you. And that was like, actually, and it was actually a really wake-up call, because I didn't know what I wanted. And I went away and thought about it, and it all turned out well in the end. But it's a really interesting concept that we can move away, but not actually know what we're moving to. And will that just be the same again? Or do we want something else? Really interesting concept.
I think we've all done this away from in our career. I hate this place, I'm going to go somewhere else. I actually did stop myself doing that. I was offered a job that was completely similar to the one I had. It was just in a different company in the same industry. So I decided not to go for it because I didn't like the industry. I didn't like the job. So it would have just been the hope that I would go to a better employer, but I would be doing the same thing from a different chair, a different desk, but it would be exactly the same to what I had. So I spent a bit more time thinking about what I wanted next. And it took time, but it helped. And we're all very good at knowing what bad looks like. So we have to define what good looks like. And what I normally start is to say, okay, you know what bad looks like. What is the exact opposite of that? And then people try to figure that out. Say, that must be what good looks like. Yes, but. Okay, so let's define what good looks like. Let's refine it, because we can't just say that I hate this job, therefore the opposite of what I have is what I want. Like your boss said, well, Sylvia, tell me, what do you want?
Yeah.
And you could have said, well, I want exactly the opposite of what I've just told you I don't want. But that might not have been realistic. So we do have to dig a little bit deeper. And this is where people like you and I come in, to be that sounding board, to just ask those questions that are difficult to answer, but make you think. And then there are those who do not want to go anywhere. They just want to be where they are. So we shouldn't expect people to just have equal measures of away from thinking and towards thinking, that it is a natural progression from one to the other. We're all different, but we all have a little bit of both in us, I think. But I've come across people who are where they are, and they're so happy being where they are. And that speaks to your mental health again, doesn't it? It's healthy to know where you are and be happy about it. It's kind of healthy to not like where you are if you have a plan to move away from that towards something else. But if you're always on the hunt and you don't know what you're hunting, you'll never get it, will you?
It's interesting as well, because picking up on the mental health aspect, or the poor mental health aspect, if one's in a position where you're really unhappy, really not liking where it is, that can really start to affect one's mental health. And that has happened to me in the past as well. And the more we don't take action, the worse it can get. So there's like this spiral downwards, as opposed to taking action. And I think that's why then a lot of people will just move jobs without thinking about what they want from that next job, and then it just repeating cycle. But it really is very debilitating, physically and mentally, to be in a position where, or a position, I mean, the job that you do, that's unhealthy. And I think a lot of people, as you say, in the pandemic left because they didn't want to be where they were anymore. I do think a lot more people these days, this is one of the things we've talked about in the workplace, they're starting to be a little bit more considered, a little bit more cognizant of what they want next. Whether that's going up the scale more, I don't know. But I think a lot of people are now thinking, for example, environmental. Do I want to work for this organisation that does this, this and this? How does I square that away with my own values? And that can then tap into our own mental health, because we have a conflict, with our value conflict going on. But it's an interesting concept as to, I think one of the keys is knowing what you want. And I think one of the things I just wanted to mention, a lot of people, you said about, you gave the example about you moving jobs. A lot of people, in my opinion, I've done this before, you'll see a job spec, 1 to 10. Oh, I can do 1, I can do them all. I can't do number 7. Oh, I'm not going to go for that job. So you end up going for a job that you're already doing. Why would you do that? So it's raising one's awareness, I think, is key. I think that's my message.
You mentioned something that people forget, and that's values. We all have values, those intangible ones that you can't hold in your hand, like love or family or money or excitement, whatever your values might be. Trust, for example, is one of them.
Yes.
Fairness. And when we don't like where we are in our workplace, in the job we have, if we think about what our values are, we might actually find that that job is walking all over some of our values. When people get angry, it's typically because someone has violated their values. So if you think about, if we live our values, we might have to deselect something, but it actually makes life easier when we are genuine and authentic to ourselves. We can go and pick a job that actually, I believe in this. Could be environmental, could be something else. And this company over there offers a lot of that, whereas where I am doesn't. It would then make sense to see if there were some opportunities in that other direction, so that you live your life according to your values. That makes for better mental health, because you don't have that internal conflict of doing something which deep down you know that you shouldn't be doing, or in a place where you don't want to be doing it.
And working, for example, in an environment that doesn't match your values. Equally, one can be in a great big organisation and the values of the organisation may not fit our own values, but the department that we're in does. And I think there is, and I've experienced that too, working for organisations where their mission and vision doesn't really, and how their culture, how they do things around there, didn't fit with how I am as a person. And that can cause dilemma, and worst case can actually lead to our mental health struggles. So I think there's a lot to be said for thinking about, who I am, what do I stand for, what do I want, who do I want to work for, does that organisation give me what I'm looking for? So you then have more of a match rather than a mismatch. And I think a lot of it is, it's a very simple sentence. What do I want? And I think if more people perhaps thought about that, weaving in, as you just said, our values and ideas. For example, working for an organisation that we feel is unfair, when one of our top values is fairness, that's going to be quite a difficult one to square away.
And what you just said there, Sylvia, is one of the things I believe people forget the most. We blame the employer and the company. They are at fault. They are a bad company. That might well be the case, but we should also stop and think, am I actually right for this company? Am I in the right place? Because if I'm like a fish out of water, of course it will be wrong, everything that the company does and stands for. So I just need to take myself somewhere else instead of trying to fix the company. Because the company might just be perfect for somebody else, but not for me. And when you have that internal conflict, again, you're sitting on the fence. Do I do one or do I do the other? And you end up doing neither, and it just goes wrong for a long time. So we have got through what motivates people.
And it's interesting you say there about sitting on the fence. Sometimes that can be demotivating because we become stuck. So there might be an external motivator. We may be motivated from within, but we get stuck because we're not quite sure where to go. So sometimes even thinking about what are our motivators. Is it money? Is it friends? Is it family? Is it fun? Is it doing the job that gives me the freedom so I can go and do the things that I love? Or am I motivated by helping other people, changing the environment, changing the planet? Sometimes that also can help us decide, what do I want?
When we do what we like, when we do what motivates us, we do feel better. So tell us what motivates you, how you make yourself feel better. Are you actually doing what you want to do, or what could you do to find it? Let us know. We've been through it, we've been round it, and we want to hear your perspectives. Definitely. Thank you very much for listening. Take care.
Bye-bye.